City, before we welcome our guests who will be talking about the Digger Motor Show that's taking place this weekend, tell us about the proverb.
Yes, from the country of Somalia. Ha ha ha. A wrong decision is worse than a drought.
A wrong decision is worse than a drought. Our guests are like, huh?
Think drought, think of the ravages of a drought, but then also think of how it is that human activity contributes to drought. Yes.
And what it means.
It's often referred to as this phenomenon that damages our lives and is beyond our control. Yes, that's one narrative, but how does it come about? Yes.
As Julia says, Julia, of course, is coming and saying decisions are like good decisions come from experience, but experience comes from bad decisions.
Must they come from bad decisions?
Experience is from everything.
You know that famous saying, it's anecdotal but famous nonetheless, that the thing about not learning from mistakes or learning from your history is that you'll then be condemned to repeat it. Yes. So the learning process, yes, indeed.
It's part of, it builds into your experience. That's what experience is all about.
Yes.
Our guest this morning, Peter Njegwa, is the General Manager in charge of advertising at the Standard Group PLC, and Hussein Kamal is the General Manager for Ashok Leyland. They're here with us in the studio. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Glad
Welcome
to be here.
to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much.
Peter,
Good morning, Eric.
are you happy?
I'm very happy.
Are you okay?
Shuja.
Yeah, you are Shuja.
Shuja.
Very good.
Peter's not just happy, Peter's anxious.
Why?
Peter, when you heard that proverb, you were like, huh?
But it actually fitted in very well because one of the biggest themes we have for the digger is actually sustainability and the certification and all that really fits in perfectly. So I was like, wow, did you choose it for this day in particular?
City always does that. he always looks ahead.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Digger Motor Show before we welcome Kamal into the conversation.
Yeah.
This Digger Motor Show, what is it all about? What's the origin of Digger?
Yes, so Digger is just one of the things that we do at the Standard. And Digger, the big thing about Digger is it's about a rabbit. And the legend of the rabbit, which is basically, I think, I don't know if you know, rabbit is kakasungura in Kiswahili.
Well, now I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And kakasungura actually talks about being fast. The legend of the rabbit is really being very fast, of course, among other things. And Digger is that marketplace where you bring in the seller and the buyer. And for this particular case, in the motor show, we're bringing in all the sellers of the cars, all manner of cars, and all the manner of together, the buyers and the sellers together. So we thought of instead of them sitting in different places, why don't we have them in one particular place where they can come in and just exchange ideas and see all the new technologies and all the new things that are happening in the motor industry. That is Digger Motor Show.
Motor industry.
Motor industry.
All motorized vehicles.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
From pig to tracker to the big ones.
Yes.
Even tuk-tuks.
Even tuk-tuks. And apart from just the ones that are petrol, then we're going into the other side with some that are actually electric.
Right.
Do you know you can have an electric motorbike? So it is going to be there at KICC, the electric motorbike. And up to the trucks where Mr. Hussein represents. So the big trucks, the small ones, the family, the need for speed, everything that is motoring.
Tractors?
Tractor Zippo.
Even those are there.
Zippo zote.
And the tippers.
Tipper Zippo.
Even those are there.
Zote Zippo.
So anybody who's basically thinking about motor, come and experience them.
Exactly. And we're actually looking at, for the most high-end cars, BMW is going to be there, Mercedes-Benz is there, Ford is there, all the high-end motor. And if you're looking for speed, Subaru Zamambaru, they are there. They're there. And then if you're thinking about family car, the Toyota, the Nissan, and everything, basically the entire industry is there. You talked about the trucks. So if you're thinking about Matatu, if you're thinking about maybe renewing your school fleet. Then of course, then we have all the manner of buses, the Toyota buses, the Hinos, the Isuzu, the Mercedes buses, the Leyland buses. Yeah, so we have the entire range. Yep.
Speaking of Leyland and buses, you know, before we come to Ashok Leyland, you'll tell us how it moved to Ashok Leyland. We just remember the Leyland big bus.
Sure.
The OTCs, right? And those are the buses.
Right, Eric.
Those buses, are they still in operation?
Yeah, they are still in operation. The trucks are still very much around. Those which survive. There's a company called Rongai Transporters, just outside Nakuru. And they are amongst, or maybe the only company that scour the country looking for these grounded leylands. And they actually buy scrap, you know, which is 50 years old or so, revive it, because they say that steel is not being made anymore. And they revive it, and you'll see the trucks on the road today.
I see those trucks.
Yes.
I see the L.
Yeah.
I see the shape of the truck.
Yes.
But I've always heard that those guys have put a new engine, a different engine in that.
No.
It's
no.
actually the
It's
original
actually-
Leyland
yes,
engine.
Yes. If anyone in Kenya wants to learn how to run a workshop, these are the guys who know how to do
It's the
it.
Rongai
It's
guys. You've seen them,
beautiful.
Indu?
I have.
Those Rongai trucks. The green Rongai
The green
truck.
ones.
Those trucks are like 80 years old or so. I mean, easy. So to see them on the road today is a testament.
Isn't it wonderful to come across things that are older than myself? So nice.
For you or us?
How about myself?
Okay.
Self-preservation here. Yes. You know, you mentioned something. I started laughing because, yes, the term turn boy, the origins.
Yes.
It has to do, remember, I said,
How
steering
you
wheel,
crank.
huge, how you clutch. Hussein, talk a little bit about it.
Okay, so back in the day, I mean, today trucks are so easy to drive. If you have a car, a driver's license, you'll still be able to operate a clutch, more or less, of course. Yeah, some of the basics are the same.
Yeah.
It's very easy to handle on your own. But back in the day, we are talking about before we had automatic steering and steering pumps and things like that, you're directly steering. Yeah, and so imagine at a standstill, you have to maneuver a truck. It would be an impossible task for the driver to do it alone. So they would have an assistant who would help them turn that steering, actually. And this guy was called a turn boy. So the name still holds today. Of course, they don't do the same job, but a lot of people don't know this.
So nowadays, the turn boy is just the loader.
Yes.
But those days, the turn boy was a driver's assistant.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, not just that he's sitting there on the side.
My
It's
friend.
also
Even when you're taking a corner or a roundabout, somebody turns it, the other one holds it. So that you turn it again and then they hold it.
Yeah, that's right.
But Leyland has then advanced over the years.
Yes, Leyland has advanced over the years. Of course, you see, there's what's known as emission norms, which have been adopted by all countries, most countries all over the world.
Yeah.
Kenya is now at the forefront, where we are now coming to what is known as the Euro 4 engine. That is Euro emission norms. They're already at Euro 6, basically. Yeah, we are just about to adopt Euro 4. I believe there's a court case pending, so by November it should be sorted out. But that means that, yes, technology is changing. These are now computer-driven vehicles or managed vehicles. There's a lot of recycling of diesel, which happens as before it actually exits from the vehicle, which means less pollution. And this implementation of Euro 4, of course, Leyland has long taken it up. For Kenya, it will be a new thing as far as Leyland goes. But it will make a huge change as far as environmental concerns go. So we are proud to be, of course, at the front of this.
What are you selling now as Leyland? Do you still have the buses and trucks, or have you moved into other smaller motor vehicles?
No, so Leyland does not deal with smaller vehicles. We deal with commercial vehicles only. And we are, though, you see, our brand name is actually Truckmart Africa, Leyland being one of the primary brands that we are carrying, but we are also moving into a lot of other areas. I'm glad you mentioned electric motorbikes. We are going to be showcasing our product at that event as well, which we developed. It's called Fika, and it's an EV, it's an electric motorbike, which we have launched, you could say in part, not really in partnership, but it's being funded by UNITAR. That's a branch of the United Nations, and KCB. Yeah, we just did the launch a couple of weeks ago. So we are also moving towards sustainable energy, renewable energy, basically.
So what are you? Are you the manufacturers or just the dealers?
No, we are actually the developers of this technology. Yeah, we have not yet reached a point in Kenya where you can manufacture electric motorbikes, but you can bring in the kits, you can manufacture, you can assemble, and we're actually manufacturing, say, 80% of the bike here locally in Kenya. That's the whole frame, the seats, everything, with exception to the battery, the motor, and the display and the tracking.
But you've designed.
Yes.
So it's your design. What you do is you just bring in the battery, you bring in the motor, but you are the ones who've designed the efficiency and the operations of this engine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the R&D, we have been doing it for the last 3 years. And from COP26 actually escalated things. It made it like literally mandatory that every country has to make a push towards this. So I'm so happy today that we are not the only ones. There's a lot of other companies who are in this platform as well. And hopefully you're going to start seeing a lot of electric bodabodas very soon, a lot of electric bikes very soon. We've already put around 300 on the ground today, but these are with like Bolt Food and some other corporations. Some are still on trial, but we are actually now making a very, very active push towards the bodaboda sector.
Okay. So who comes out? We're looking at this tomorrow on Saturday into the weekend. Who comes out? Really, who is your target market to say, come out and see vehicles that are available at the Digger show? And so who are you targeting?
So, look, we have the commercial vehicles, of course. We are targeting anyone. The FMCG sector is massive in Kenya. So we have a product which meets every need, from a small delivery van, to
mobile restaurant.
Mobile restaurant, There's we have a client known as Tronic. They deal in they import and distribute electronics countrywide. So they have used our vehicles to actually. It's a one of a kind. It's a mobile showroom actually, with all their lights, and so you can walk in. They travel all over the country, set up, and you can walk in, and it's like a container you're walking into, but you think you're walking into a showroom. So it's a very innovative approach.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've seen mobile supermarkets like what you mentioned. I've seen those done, I think, in South Africa. And I was so impressed by that. That's such a novel idea, that you could actually implement that very easily here. So FMCG is huge. Construction, construction has been really good. I mean, in Kenya, you can see buildings are coming up everywhere. The government has been constructing roads. So that is also a ready market for, our products, basically.
I'd like you to talk about these Euro standards with regards to emissions.
Yes.
What it is that these standards are, how it is that they are measured, why it is that they are relevant, and when you move from 4 to 6, what exactly are you saying that you are doing? And when you talk of emissions, how do you measure these quantities, and what is it that you're actually reducing? And then, of course, why we need to reduce them and the negative effects that these emissions have. Okay.
So I'll try and put it in layman's terms, of course, because some of this is actually very conch stuff. What happens is traditionally as a country, as Kenya, we have always been on the combustion engine technology that we have been using was not very different from what, say, Henry Ford invented back in the day.
Yeah. We have Henry Ford version 2.
Yeah, so
I was thinking more of Gottlieb and Daimler.
Yeah, yes, fine, Gottlieb and Daimler, no problem. Yeah, let's put it even. That's fine. It would be the first, actually. But so it was the same technology. Nothing changed, which means that fuel in such engines is not optimally combusted. It is not all used up. A lot of it actually just comes out as waste from your exhaust pipe. So what is released into the environment ends up being a lot of course, there is the products of combustion, but you also have raw products leaking out. That is wasteful, and that is also harmful to the environment, because you have a lot of, particulate matter, around in the environment. So technology has allowed this process to be refined. You remember back in the day in Kenya, we used to have leaded fuel. Now, leaded fuel was really bad for us, because leaded fuel was very corrosive,
Well, why did we have leaded fuel? Why? What was? They must have told us that there's some benefit to it. What was supposed to have been the benefit?
I think it was just probably the refining process
It's
at
what
that
they had
time.
developed then.
Yeah, that's what
That's
we
what
were
was
being
available.
given. Yeah, that's what was available before they figured out that lead. I mean,
It was
lead
harmful.
ingestion in any way is harmful, is poisonous. Yeah, so ultimately, now we have unleaded fuel. So in the same manner, diesel engines today, and I'm just speaking about diesel right now because this is where the technology is evolving, that if you take diesel from Europe, it is refined to such a degree that if you look at it, probably you would not see such a difference between petroleum and diesel. Diesel here is like very oily, still. And you cannot actually take diesel from Europe and use it in our trucks here. It will not even really perform, because that diesel has been refined to that degree. The technology that is needed to combust it is very different from the engines we are using here. And probably vice versa. You can't take the diesel from here and take it to Europe and use it over there. It would be highly unrefined for them. So that is the how far they have reached. And this is hopefully how far we are aiming to reach. The technology coming in now basically means that it comes with an EGR system, which is a recycling. As the diesel is combusted, it is passed through once again through the engine, which allows it to be a component
One
of it
more
to be
run.
reused, one more run, if you
Alright.
will, so that when it's released into the environment, it is actually much, much cleaner with less particulate matter than has been the case before. So that, in a nutshell, is, I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Besides the environment, what else does this technology do? I mean, in terms of cost, in terms of efficiency.
So you get much better efficiency because it is, at the end of the day, computer controlled. So every nozzle, every injector nozzle is controlled onto how it is firing, what quantity of diesel is allowed to release from every nozzle. Until now, it has just been a purely mechanical process. So that means if one of your nozzles is misfiring, you'll not even know.
So, Riako.
Yeah, you'll just find there's a miss in the engine, or you'll not really until you start mechanical diagnosis. With these systems, it's computer diagnosis. So you would need to plug in a machine to understand what exactly you're having a problem with, because you'd have your warning lights triggered. And this will alert you to the fact that there's actually something not going right with your
So,
truck.
to the business person,
Yeah.
there's efficiency,
Yes.
there's a cost factor.
Yes.
Does it give me more kilometers in between service? I mean, what else in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
I'm running a business, I've come and bought this truck.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. So what's the benefit?
So absolutely. I'll give you an example of one of the products we already have in the country, which we have been operating for the last few years. It's called the Leyland Dost. Now, Dost is an Indian word which means friend.
Dost is friend.
Friend, yeah, in Hindi, basically.
Hindi?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a small pickup. It's a 1.5 tonner. And we have made huge strides in like the bread industry. You'll see these small pickups with like DPL Festive and some other clients.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The reason clients like these pickups is that the fuel efficiency is unmatched in this industry. It gives, on the highway, it gives about 19 kilometers per liter.
What?
Yeah, and in town with traffic, it gives 14 kilometers per liter. And these are minimum, and this is actually proven. So, I mean, you factor it in against the cost of fuel today, where you have your other vehicle giving you 6-7 kilometers per liter in traffic, and we are doubling your efficiency. So that will come industry-wide in every application once this technology is implemented. That you will have much, much better fuel efficiency, which would help counter the high cost of fuel, which of course leads to so many other things down the line, because fuel is what is running our whole engine as an economy, basically.
It's beautiful.
No, it sounds good, and it's actually really good in reality. But I can never run away. Now, this is my conspiracy thinking coming into being. The business element in our discussions and the profit margins that must be looked into. Because when I look at technology, the advancements, and whatever technology does, the question I'm asking, the question that is in my mind is, at what point does the common good become a predominant process of thought? And at what point does the profit element, because it's business anyway, interface with this so that there is a balance? Because there has to be a balance. See, I'm looking at, when we're talking about emissions and the technology, and I was thinking, by the time something comes into the public domain for public for public consumption, what goes on before we get to that point are many things. And even when we say a model is unveiled, it's not the only model that's available. There are others. You look at the pharmaceutical industry, it's the same thing. They'll say the cost is attached to what we know the company undergoes in the R&D before it gets to. So we must recoup. Okay, now, public benefit. Ashok Leyland.
Sure.
How do they balance this? How do they ensure that when you get a product, you've balanced all the things that I've mentioned, and that I, the consumer, or the wannabe consumer, or the perhaps might be consumer, is in a position to know that, well, my interests are well taken care of?
I think I understand what you're asking, and basically, let me try and answer it in a way that I hope answers your question. This technology, once it is implemented, and a lot of questions are being asked about whether our current, I'll put it in a point, like let's say fuel. What happens to the older vehicles that are on the road? Yeah, because if you say we have a population of, X number of vehicles, and you're changing the entire fuel system, what happens to those so-called Euro 1 or, Euro 2 vehicles? Will they still be able to work with this technology? Or will they be able to work with this level of refined diesel? So this is something which the government, as far as we are concerned, have thought through, and Euro 4, the kind of diesel which will be refined will still be able to support those vehicles, so they don't become all of a sudden obsolete. There will be, of course, a time frame for them to still continue operating. Ashok Leyland has developed this technology. I mean, Ashok Leyland vehicles are already at Euro 6 technology, have been for the last. For them, Euro 4 is still 4-year, 5-year-old technology. You see, the challenge is the vehicles we are using right now are, like I mentioned earlier, at Euro 2. Manufacturers are not supporting this anymore. It's only countries like ours that have these requirements. Very few. So you would say African countries, maybe some South American countries. So the rest of their production chain, if they're selling 30 million vehicles annually, not annually, but if they have 30 million vehicles around and 5 million vehicles are what they need to support, for them that's a very small number. They're moving on. They're having to, because it's a whole different process. Assembly line is different, technology is different. You're now having to maintain old spare parts.
Just for 5,000.
Just for countries like ours, you see. And when you look at volumes, it's not really, you can't compare us to, a country like India, China, populations, Indonesia, Malaysia. You see, these are much, much higher populations. So they're having to sustain this old technology just for people like us who are behind by
For the poor
10 years.
countries.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, CT, even at individual level, the consumer is really asking those questions. Public good versus my own personal benefit. And I'm looking. I don't know if you remember the days when during COVID, when the shutdown, and you could actually, it was being said, you could actually see Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Kenya from Nairobi. And so we are asking ourselves, what is our contribution to environment? And it's no longer just that very far away question. It's a question that's very close to us. So there's that public good of making sure the environment really works and it's functioning in a way it's supposed. But there's also now the other benefit of the efficiency. Now I'm consuming more than 10,000 worth of petrol in a week, or 12,000, 15,000. But if I get an engine that actually can be able to cut that, then for me, then it actually becomes now even individual good. So that connection of the two of them is really blurred now, such that then I would rather then go for that. And then the engines for those days were like, for example, if they were electric cars, they were really like, small contraptions that you could not use. Nowadays, they're really nice cars. They're really a car on, it's an app on wheels. Yeah. It's a really, really nice car. So that, the line between public and private is really being blurred and becoming one. Yeah, so as much as I'm pushing my own personal, I'm also pushing for the environment. I'm pushing for the planet also.
For the greater good.
Yep.
Let's take a break at 26 minutes to 10. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, talking about the Digger Motor Show that's taking place from tomorrow up to Sunday at the KICC. Peter Njegwa is the General Manager Advertising at the Standard Group PLC. We are the organizers of this event. And, of course, we're promoting it courtesy of SpiceFM. Jimmy Gath will be there throughout the 3 days.
Yep.
He's our man on the ground. I'll be broadcasting his show from there tomorrow. Hussein Kamal is the General Manager of Ashok Leyland, one of those who are big supporters and big exhibitors of this show. He will be showcasing their full range of vehicles, of motor vehicles, from Pikipiki. It is called Fika, the new electric boda. It'll be there. To the buses, to the trucks, to the pickups, to other commercial vehicles that you have.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Njegwa, GM Advertising at Standard Group, and Hussein Kamal, GM from Ashok Leyland, talking about the Digger Motor Show that's taking place this weekend at the KICC Courtyard from tomorrow, 21st October, to Sunday, 23rd October. Come and enjoy the motor show with great entertainment, courtesy of SpiceFM. Who's going to be there? Anybody in the automotive industry, dealers, car enthusiasts, asset financing agencies, car accessory providers, government officials, including policymakers, and all. So, Peter, how many exhibitors do we have?
We have over 74 exhibitors.
Hey.
74, including the financials. So as you choose your car, there's the financial for you, banks, SACCOs, and microfinancials. So you can be able, the entire chain where you're choosing the car, you're looking at the car, and you have somebody actually even to finance you for it. Yeah.
So there are people who are selling brand new motor vehicles. Are there people who are also selling second-hand motor vehicles, used cars?
No, it's actually used cars. It's all used cars, and mainly from the dealers themselves. Dealers are like Ashok Leyland, but also bodybuilders, people who actually, you buy a shell and you probably just put the body together. To the accessories like you mentioned, where do you get the spares? Where do you get the things to put in the car? And to the entire chain. You mentioned about the borders, the bikes. So the entire 74 of them. Yeah.
So can we guarantee those who will be coming to the exhibition, or those who then essentially might buy through a financial whatever, or if they're coming with a bucket of cash, can we assure them that whatever is up for exhibit, up for sale, then meets the mark, and that nobody's buying something that you'll take away and then would never move again?
Absolutely, because what we're dealing with is used cars, the biggest dealers we have in Kenya, DTW, the known brands, makers of Mercedes-Benz. You're dealing with, we have the exhibitors of Land Rover, so it's guaranteed, yes, and then we have government on site also, cabs, so it's guaranteed, yes, this is the real deal. Yep.
And TSA?
How?
Okay, the future Digger Motor Show, they're going to be there as well.
Yeah.
So why used vehicles? Why not new? I mean, all these dealers that you're talking about also deal in brand new. You go showroom car, 0 mileage, like CTs.
So
He has driven it for 17 years. It's still
Zero mileage.
zero mileage.
Because all the mileage there is 9 kilometers.
So it's an exhibition mainly for new, not used. Mainly because there are a lot of benefit for the used, for the new. Sorry, in terms of even employment for the country. Like he's talking about, from manufacturing, bodybuilding. There's a whole value chain that actually a new car brings into the economy as opposed to just the used. Yes, the used are still play a big role. Yeah, but this exhibition is mainly just around the new.
It's for new.
Yes.
Earlier you had said used.
For new.
No,
No.
But let me ask, since we are talking about this, NTSA don't feature KRA? They should. The reason why I'm saying this, because when you talk about the cost of vehicles, KRA has to be in the picture. Vehicles cost what they cost because of KRA's activities.
Yeah.
Yes.
So KRA is definitely there, and KRA is coming in basically to also as part of the assurance, and maybe that's a conversation we should be having, because part of the Diga Motor Show, we're going to have a Transform Kenya discussion, which is a thought leadership that we're going to host here on KTN Home, and those are some of the things we'll be asking. Why are our new cars so expensive, and what is the government doing to bring in issues to, for example, the e-mobility, electric cars and everything
To
else,
incentivize that sector.
exactly. So that's part 2 of the Diga Motor Show that's coming in just a week after.
We hope that Dr. David Day and his group of wazirs who are advising the president on the economy should also be there. When you talk about policymakers,
Yep.
it starts from that level of Dr. David Day and the thinkers who would then talk to the cabinet and advise the cabinet. So if we are looking at the motor vehicle industry in the country, this is what we need to see. This is how we incentivize the electric vehicle developers so that they can play a bigger role in the economy. What kind of incentives would you need, Hussein? Or
As far
none?
as-
You're
as-
fine. I mean,
We all need incentives. I was just smiling to myself because when you said KRA will be there, I hope they don't scare people off.
Well,
No, but it's good that they're there. It's important for public participation and engagement at all levels, obviously. When it comes to incentives, the government can do a lot, should do a lot to encourage the implementation of technology, or rather implementation. At this point, I would say green technology, local assembly. I'll start with local assembly, for example. The government has, under the previous government, they had really encouraged local manufacturing. So to the point where if you're importing CKD kits, those are knockdown kits which are going to be assembling locally. You get a huge benefit on, excise duty and all of that. There are items which the government has flagged that can be manufactured locally. So if you're bringing in those items, you're charged tax on them. An example is batteries, tires, things like that. Back in the 80s, literally when we used to do local assembly for brands like Peugeot and Toyota and all these others, almost everything was, all the fitments were manufactured locally. Tires, seats, all the whatever fabric,
Batteries.
upholstery, batteries, everything was manufactured locally. Over the years, unfortunately, a lot of these industries went down. To date, if you're importing a car, truck, if you'll be charged 25% on tires, unless you provide them locally. But who is there to provide local tires?
There's no
for
local
them?
manufacturer of the tires.
I mean, Samir Africa was the last man standing on that front, and they shut down local production a long time ago. So, government's responsibility at this point is to understand why these companies no longer exist, or why they are struggling, or what is happening to local manufacturing. I mean, today, if we say we have, Rivertex was revived and they're doing local fabric production or whatnot, all of this can be translated to other industries, other sectors as well. So where is the, encouragement towards this? If today someone like Samir Africa can't produce local tires, bringing them from China is much cheaper. Why? Is it the cost of electricity? Is it the cost of labor? Is it the cost of production? What's happening? What's going wrong? So these are the areas where, yes, government can provide incentives, my take is always that incentives should also, encourage or locally empower the population. Let us build up our capability to manufacture locally. If you look at what COVID did, if you look at what's happening in the world today with, the war in Ukraine, is there a reason why bread, the price of bread should go up? A country like ours, agricultural backbone, and we cannot produce wheat. That is a shame for us.
Sufficient wheat for our own
so
bread
that
consumption.
translates to every industry, that we cannot become an economy based on importation of goods. We have to become an economy that produces goods. So empower local industries, those who are willing to do it. Yeah, but
So
maybe,
really, that is
yeah.
that. I mean, we could talk about many things, but really, that is the only way
Yes.
that to create that which your local economy can buy and then export the surplus, for example,
Yes.
is what we are talking about.
Yes.
And that to say through exhibits like this, it
Yes.
can be showcased that local Kenyan industries
Yes.
are actually manufacturing what Kenyan businesses can use. You speak of the pickup, you speak of the truck,
Yes.
essentially becoming school buses later, locally manufactured as well as locally assembled vehicles that can be used across industry.
Yes.
Pointing towards that, what kind of support then would this industry need?
Support from the government, of course. So incentives, like coming back to incentives, like I mentioned, that the electric motorbike we are showcasing at this event, FICA, is more or less 80% locally produced. We are producing the frame locally, we are producing the seats locally, but we are not manufacturing things like brake shoes, although we do rebonding here. So it's like we're almost there, but just a step away from it. So if the government was to step in and say, you know what, guys, how do we do this? How do you produce these
How
things?
do you get 100%
Yeah.
done locally, or even if not 100, then 95%?
Yeah. It really hurts me. I mean, I keep coming back to tires, but that is the one commodity every vehicle, every, border, everyone is buying tires every day in, day out, and we don't have local production for such an important commodity. It's a huge, shame as far as I'm
Probably
concerned.
one of the easiest to manufacture.
Yeah. How did we go backwards?
There's a ready market,
Yeah.
not just for the country, but for the region. If we look at ourselves as the suppliers, as the manufacturing hub of the East African community,
Yeah.
an entire 300 million population, why shouldn't we be doing these things locally?
Other countries, a lot of other countries, what they do is to encourage this kind of startups, or to encourage these kinds of even foreign investment, for example, give massive tax breaks for the first, say, 3 years, 5 years, where you don't have to pay taxes, you don't, or it's subsidized, but there are requirements that you'll have to employ, say 70% of your workforce has to be locally based, production has to be based here, you'll get incentives on electricity, water, depending on what you're doing. We are not really doing that. We are not really looking at that. Today, if you look at startups, you're seeing, I think in the last few months, I think 3 or 4 startups have collapsed within 2 years. What happened? On one hand, we are marketing ourselves as an attractive,
Investment hub, Silicon Valley, Silicon Savannah, and all these things, but then we are not.
And on the other side also, there is the bit of if you really wanted to go to a showroom and get a car, you probably find maybe it's much more expensive than if you maybe went into any other country. And so what is it that we can do to ensure that I am not going for a used, which looks affordable, but I can actually be able to afford a showroom brand new car?
Newer technology, cleaner technology and all. Moses Kuria is going to take over as the Minister in charge of Trade and Industry. Those are the questions. Have him on Transform Kenya panel as well.
Yep.
I want to just go back to this industry where we're talking about that if we're going to manufacture, that is one of the ways to be able to, spur up growth in the economy. So are we saying, if you just look at, the vehicle motorized industry right now, do we have enough across board? Are there enough that would say, all right, guys, go ahead and manufacture, go ahead and start to build, whether we're talking about from your 2-wheeler to 3-wheeler to 4-wheeler, all the way to, however many are there. How, if the government was at the point where they said, okay, we have to obviously get this thing moving, would we have enough? Or do we just have Leyland and a few others here or there? Or cross-board, could we say we can actually push this thing out?
Are we talking like capability?
Capacity across board.
So we have two assemblers in Kenya. There's AVA, there's KVM. These are vehicle assembly units, and I've visited these plants on countless times, and they're doing a fantastic job. Isuzu have their own assembly plant internally. What we are lacking is the local manufacturing capacity, where instead of bringing in everything from abroad, say we don't have the capacity to manufacture the engines yet, no problem, we can bring those in as kits. But what if we can manufacture the rest of the vehicle locally? There's a company called Mobius. They had started this a few years ago also. They had launched.
They doing?
So interestingly, the Mobius 1 and 2 are manufactured locally. To the best of my knowledge and understanding, the last Mobius 3 now these are kits which are being brought in from China to be assembled locally. So it went from local production to, once again,
local assembly.
Yeah, so what went wrong? These are the guys who need to be asked. What happened, you see?
So you're asking about capacity. I think capacity is there in terms of knowledge and everything, because some of them are really pretty basic. Manufacturing tire is really, rubber, and it's pretty. The knowledge is there. I know of somebody in Ruiru who actually does, the helmets for the border borders. Yeah, and that's now subsidizing what we could have probably invented. I don't think it's really complicated. It's just maybe the enabling environment that is lacking. Yep.
I would love to add to what you're saying, because I think that company is called Border Plus, and it's important that such guys are actually highlighted. What they have done is they have produced a helmet which is virtually unbreakable. I mean, their safety norms are above and beyond what you'd get from anywhere, India, China, you name it. And they have a very interesting way of testing their products. That they go to the field, they show the Boda guys, and they tell them, if you can smash this, we'll pay you so much money, or we'll give you, a helmet for free. So there are videos actually about these guys trying to smash them. And the idea is that, look, if impact, and you can't break them, that is what they're making. And it is cost effective. It competes with the pricing you get from China. And those Boda guys are actually buying these helmets, even if it's 100 bob more, because they understand. When they have an impact. The Chinese helmet, because you're looking at the lowest quality possible coming into this country, to be very honest. Those things are just there for show. Yeah,
it's not a helmet.
It's not a helmet. So if we can manufacture locally, we can manufacture better. We know our own industry better. We know the challenges we face. We know what kind of quality we need to produce here.
Yeah.
The culprit in the room is always government policy. And how it is the government seeks to build, whether it's industry or commerce. Because the crony capitalism that we see being practiced in this country does not encourage industry development, does not encourage manufacturing. It doesn't. It looks for the shortest possible cut, as in a shortcut, to actually make profits for the people who are behind it. So these things that we're talking about, these laborious processes that actually end up with a lot of money in the country and every other activity that goes with it, but that isn't their priority. So it isn't even given a second thought. When we talk about even, say, for instance, the manufacture of, I'm diverting from the industry, but I have to. Any industry we speak of, edible oils, why is there such a big market for importation when we know full well we can actually do that? And you can start with the farming inputs that are required to have the foundation on which you can base this. But
why aren't we growing palm oil?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Why? What is this thing?
Yes. Moses Kuria said the first thing that he's going to do once he's sworn in as the CS is go to Malaysia and have a discussion.
But he doesn't even need to go so far. I mean, Museveni did it quite a few years ago.
And I'm happy he's asking the right questions. For example, the chicken. He asked about why we're importing chicken from Uganda. And I think he was answered that we export the live chicks. So basically, it's our own eggs.
Remember, in the time of President Moi, all these assembly plants we speak of,
yes,
okay, we ourselves got to a point where we even showcased a car that was produced locally. Now, surely, I mean, you build on such gains, or you partner with people who probably understand this better than you, but with the time, the knowledge becomes localized and you're able to do the very thing that those people were doing.
Yes.
How do you think, when we talk of Toyota, all these, how do you think they got to where they were?
It was focus.
Yes.
Yep, we need to have focus. Gentlemen, we thank you very much for joining us today. So, Peter, how do we get to the KICC courtyard? Is it free entry?
Free entry.
Kabisa.
The only thing that you need is your 5 senses. Sense of sight. Come and see. Come and enjoy. Come in and really enjoy, because if you're a petrolhead, you'll have an unlimited array of cars out there on the display.
And sense of touch.
Sense
and
of
smell.
touch. Yes. Yeah.
And hearing.
Yes.
Make sure especially that one.
Yeah, absolutely. We will have, visitors will be able to even try out the electric motorbike we have on site, take a ride, see how it feels, just for you to understand. That's where we are going.
Take it home for a weekend and then bring it back.
We'll come to that.
Test driving.
Yeah. We also, by the way, on the commercial trucks, we also provide demos. We do believe in what you're talking about.
Nice.
That for a client to understand the product he's going to
You
use,
must experience it.
he must experience it. So we actually have, 2-3 vehicles which we give out to clients who are interested. You don't have to be a corporation. Yeah, it could be your first buy. But we will give you that vehicle to go to try to use for a week, and that will give you all the pluses and minuses about it. You have to be able to stand behind your product.
Fantastic. Hussein Kamal is a GM at Ashok Leyland, and Peter Njego is the GM advertising at Standard Group PLC. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. See you all tomorrow at the KICC courtyard. We'll be there tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday at the Digger Motor Show.